You're listening to Simon Scriver's amazingly ultimate fundraising superstar podcast, talking all things fundraising, charities, non-profits, and more.
This is your host, Simon Scriver, but I'm on holiday at the moment, so here is your guest host, the IOF Community Fundraising Special Interest Group.
Okay, hello everyone. My name's Sarah. I chair the Institute Fundraising Community Fundraising Special Interest Group. Definitely rolls straight off the tongue. I'm here today with some other members of the committee, and we're going to talk a bit about community fundraising and why we feel so passionately about it. Do everyone else want to introduce themselves?
Yep, my name is Millie Coulter. I'm fundraising manager for Surrey at the British Heart Foundation, and as Sarah mentioned, I'm on the Special Interest Group Committee for Community Fundraising.
I'm Alice. I'm the Senior Community Events Executive at Wild Child Cancer, and I'm also on the committee for the SIG community group.
And I'm Emily Roth, and I'm the Head of Fundraising at Children with Cancer UK, and also one of the SIG community members.
Okay. So today's podcast that we're looking after for Simon is around a tweet that I tweeted earlier this year, and it's something that's actually had a lot of shares and retweets and people feel quite passionately about. And that tweet was, community fundraising is not the poor relation. Communities are what our causes are built on and should always be at the heart of what we do. Community fundraising builds relationships and opens doors. So, yeah, just kind of want to get people's thoughts on that a little bit. Want to kick us off?
As someone that has worked in community fundraising since I graduated from uni, I will wholeheartedly put my hands up and say that community fundraising is, I feel, sometimes the most important part of fundraising for an organisation. I completely understand the role of other ways to fundraise, and everybody does an amazing job doing them. But the community fundraisers, whatever charity it is, are the ones that are on the ground speaking to the people that are supporting the charity and pushing the message out there. So in terms of getting the message out, I think community fundraisers are really well placed to be that sort of the face of the charity if it's not going to be the volunteers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's community fundraising. You also mix with such a variety of people as well, of all ages. So within my role, I look after schools, universities, but then also like challenge events participants, and also a group called Outlanders, because of our patron is the lead actress in the show. So we get community fundraisers because of her, who are all sort of linked together because of the show, and they're all around the world. So there's such a variety of people that I've either met or I connect with online and stuff. And I just think there's no other sort of fundraising stream that you get to hit people at so many different points of their life. Because at some point I could be talking with primary school children, and then sometimes I could be talking with like adults doing like challenge events and stuff. So I think you just get such a variety, and I think that's so important because you need to sort of hit people at so many different points in their lives to really care about your cause and everything. And I don't think any other fundraising sort of stream does that as much, because obviously you're not going to be a major donor at the age of 5. So it's like, it is important.
Well, you never know, Alice.
You never know. I won't hold anyone back.
Big
But,
thing.
yeah, I think I just feel very lucky to be able to, connect with so many different people of just different backgrounds. Because of,
I totally agree. For us as well at Children with Cancer UK, our kind of community team, they're based regionally, and they straddle so many different teams and get to really support all different types of fundraising streams. They have their own kind of targets and look after, like you said, like schools and youth groups, universities, all sorts of things like that. But they also support our corporate fundraising teams and look after kind of local community corporates, as well as helping with some of the in-mem work and sports teams. So they really do, as you say, kind of get to touch and talk and really support so many different types of fundraisers, which is really is amazing.
I'll second that, Emily. Actually, I've always been one of these people that thinks that community fundraising is actually the best place to always promote the other parts of the charity as well. So both in the role that I do now, but also previous roles that I've had, it's like you might have a community fundraiser they sit with you as a supporter, but then you can then direct that supporter as a community fundraiser, and the way that you are in the organisation, you can then direct them to maybe an event that they're interested in the events team, or a campaign that they might be interested in getting involved in because it's something that's close to their heart. And there's loads of different community fundraising just has like so many different touch points within the organisation. Like your staff members at Children with Cancer, I'm also regionally based, so I look after a variety of sort of people as well, in the same way that you were saying, Alice, right from the age, from really little kids right the way through to university students, and then obviously, in the middle there's like that group that want to do your own thing, do challenge events that, or maybe not challenge events that are like registered ones, and they'll do weird and wacky things that you then get to see. But then you also have sort of maybe the older generation who have been fundraising for 35 years, who have seen the charity go through so many different changes. But then equally, I then get to promote the whole charity to these people, which I think is really special, because we then feel, we know a lot about the charity, and we're quite pivotal to the way that each department works. And I think one of the things that really highlighted that to us at BHF is that our legacy team have recently come to us and really invested in training us in terms of speaking about legacies and gifts and wills, and having those training sessions, which have been amazing.
Really important.
And it's been really fantastic to have that sort of faith in us and respect for what it is that we actually do. Because Sarah, I think you touched on it with your quote that you had from Twitter. I think for a really long time, community fundraising has been seen as the poor relation, and we just do our bake sales and that sort of thing, and we bring in the small money. But Emily, as you touched on, we're also working with regional corporates and that sort of stuff as well. So actually we're looking after high value partnerships out in the community, but they're getting this amazing experience because they've got someone that's local to them that can go into their offices, speak to their staff, and really know the area that they live in as well. I think it's a win-win.
You know what, though? This is not on what you've said there, Millie. This is on stuff that I've heard various places. It's that thing around small money. The community fundraisers. You go faff about your collections in sales and bring in £2.20 here and £4.40 there. I've heard some quite senior people refer to fundraisers. It's a small money team, small gifts team, small. And I'm like, okay, whoa. Whoa. This is where I'm going to get up on my high horse a little bit. Actually, I've worked with community fundraisers who in any other organisation would be considered to be the major donors. I've worked with challenge event participants who have raised £15,000.
Yeah.
Whilst
definitely
just getting started. And this is nothing against major donor fundraisers at all, but in an organisation that's been built on community fundraisers and people going out and doing things, your major donors are the ones that are raising 15 grand a year by whatever mad challenge they're doing next, or their big annual event, or whatever it might be. While the philanthropy team might just be in its fledgling early years. And, it's going to take a while to get to that stage. And actually, these are the people that we need to be looking after and making sure they're bringing in that money year after year. Because if those 4 or 5 supporters didn't bring in their 15 grand, all of a sudden that's a project that's being closed.
Yeah, and I mean, at a previous charity that I worked at, the community fundraising team brought in half the charity's income because the community fundraising team
amazing.
was the strength. And I think that's really something that I'm really proud of, that I've worked in a team that that was part of doing that and being that important to the organisation. Community fundraisers, I touched on it earlier, but community fundraisers are in the best position for our supporters to then be directed to other parts and to benefit the other parts of the charity. So for example, just on the top of my head, so corporate partners that I work with, I will take to them an events calendar, and on that events calendar will be some of our national events. So for example, London to Brighton bike ride, and then that results in a team being put in to the London to Brighton bike ride. So that's them getting more participants for the events team. So I think community fundraising and everybody that works in that area has a real want to share what they know and share that success across the charity. So I know that we're really encouraged to think of one BHF. So, although it might not mean anything for the community fundraising team, or it might eventually down the line, at that point in time, they want to be doing London to Brighton, despite the fact that you're the one that's met them. But then you're best placed to then introduce them and sort of give them that bit of a personalised journey, in the hope that then they will come back after they finish doing London to Brighton and getting their sponsorship. they will then remember hopefully that amazing relationship that you've built up with them and become sort of a long-term supporter that you can take on different journeys and know that, you know, you can direct them in other places, but, you know, really know that you've done your job properly, that they'll come back to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
One team,
And it's definitely
one
something that we're trying to invest in at the moment. We've over the last year introduced the regional fundraising team, which is having a huge impact on just like the community products, but then also across corporate and sports. And yeah, I think it's just getting the right investment, isn't it? And really being able to sell the worth of a community team, and you know how it's going to affect that income, but also how is it going to affect across the whole wider charity. And that's the thing that we're, like I say, trying to do at the moment, and coming up with better products that the community team can go out to their local communities with as well, to really have a variety of different things that they can get people involved with.
I think it also comes back as well, you know, I mean, as community fundraisers, our targets are financial at the end of the day. You know, at the end of each financial year, we have financial targets that we have to meet. But when you actually look back and reflect on your year, you may have also brought in so many other things. So, you know, you will have, you know, met some volunteers who have then gone out and done loads of talks, etc., etc. And you'll have passed on people that maybe have signed up for a gift in their will that you might not know about. And you're the ones that have touched those people. And just because that's not directly reflected in the results in terms of the financial side of it, doesn't mean that we're not doing our jobs and not worthwhile, if that makes sense. You know, we offer such a lot to the community and also to the charity, and I think more and more charities are realising just how important community fundraising is, particularly after GDPR's come in. It's really those relationships that we have with long-term supporters that are proving really beneficial.
Yeah, I think sometimes the trickiness we have with trying to show our value in the team is that sometimes the community is not it's not really a quick win. So there'll be, especially relationship with like Rotary clubs or schools or universities or things like that, they're sometimes years in the making. And so it's not just like a huge, oh, you see this great $5,000 gift, but that's taken however many years to sort of really build up to. So I think sometimes that's the issue we have, and it's like, oh no, we are developing this relationship, or if people say, oh, you're out of the office a lot, or you've been meeting a lot of people in that it's those, you know, those keep having those touch points, and then eventually it will pay off. But it's never just you ask someone and then, you know, however much money comes in straight away. It does. Sometimes these things take a little while.
It's a definite waiting game, isn't it, Alice?
Yes, definitely.
Everything all over. I don't know if there's any fundraising that is a quick win per se.
No, that's true.
It takes time to build those relationships. Our major donor fundraisers do, our trust team do.
Yes, that's true.
So, and just come back to something that you were saying, Millie, is, you know, one team, one target thing is so important. Like, we shouldn't, as any fundraisers, get caught up in our own personal targets we have to deliver. Like, yes, we know we have to, but ultimately it's about how as a team are we going to deliver this one big target, which is to raise enough money to do the work that we need to do. And
I also think on that note as well, Sarah, I think it's also really, you know, community fundraisers are also in a really good place to be able to really sort of think about where money is being spent as well, and also about that one target. I mean, I think because we're on the ground, we hear the stories from our supporters. You know, I've sat in many a coffee shop or a living room with family members who are distraught because they've had some really devastating news, and you can provide that comfort. So you know that whatever they raise, whether it's 50 quid, whether it's 100 quid, it may not seem like a lot to a lot of other teams, which is coming back to what you were saying earlier. But if you put that towards that big target and think of it as an overarching sort of target rather than what community fundraising are doing, it's so important to have those people that are so passionate about it. And community fundraisers are so key to that, and key to getting people emotionally engaged with the charity.
I think that's such an important point, Millie, because we as fundraisers, community fundraisers, we're often so much more than fundraisers. We are friends and counsellors, and we can be there at sometimes the most important moments in people's lives. I worked at a hospice, and there was a lady who had lost her husband at the hospice maybe a year earlier, I think it was, and she hadn't been back since. And she came in to talk about the little spark of a fundraising idea, a little thing she wanted to do. And I could pick up really quickly how emotional it was for her being there. Because at first she only wanted to like sit in the reception area. And the way she was talking, the way she was sharing the experience of the hospice, I was like, would you like to go and have a look? We just refurbished one of the wards. I was like, would you like to go and have a look at what we're doing? I said, I completely understand if you don't want to. And she's like, no, I would. And we ended up having a really lovely emotional conversation, sat in one of the rooms. And she cried a bit, and she was saying, like, this was so helpful for me. This was so cathartic. And, not only do I now want to continue helping, which I was going to do anyway, but like, you've genuinely helped me. And it was such a special moment as a fundraiser. It's like, actually, I don't mind whether you go and raise 50p, 50 quid, or 50 million pounds. I've helped you at what was a really important moment in your life. And it's hard to know if any other fundraisers, maybe this is something, some listeners can share, actually, are there any other types of fundraising where we get that level of engagement with people and can be there for someone at what's a really emotive time?
Yeah, you've put us all into silence there, Sarah, with your emotional somber story.
Yeah.
Sorry. But this is it, exactly. Like, how can anyone say that someone, the purpose of what that charity does is to be there for people at the end of life and be there for their families at the end of someone's life. And, in some teeny tiny way, I was able to help a very, very, very small amount. And, actually maybe it was a really big deal. But for me, it was just doing my job. It was meeting with someone who wanted to know more about the charity and for me to help as much as I could. And, this is why it infuriates me when people don't understand the value that community fundraising can add. It's not just about the financial value. It's so much wider than that, so much deeper than that.
Yeah, we're that emotional face of the charity, aren't we, at the end of the day? We're the ones that are, I would like to think that if the BHF was a person, that the person would look after, the people that have been affected by heart and circulatory conditions. So as a community fundraiser, that's what I would try to do with my supporters. Does that make sense? That's a really weird thing to say.
You're living and breathing the charity, aren't you, and their values, and really putting it out to the local communities.
Yeah, and I think that's the same with all community fundraisers. I've never met a single community fundraiser who doesn't, feel extremely passionate about their charity and how it's helping the people that they're meeting on a day-to-day basis. And I guess that also comes, it comes down to as well how good the charity is at sort of showing how that charity helps people. Does that make sense? Like their story and why they exist. That gives a community fundraiser a really good base to be able to then go out and share that with people and really sort of go, well, if you have a relationship with me and raise money for this particular charity, this is how it's going to help you. And that's where community fundraisers become storytellers as well, alongside everything else that they sort of have in their skill set.
Mm-hmm. And I think they can be the story finders as well.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I worked in a team once where community sat under sort of public fundraising, essentially, but it hadn't quite been branded as such, but it was individual giving and community. And yeah, there's so much, individual giving saying, oh, we're doing a legacy piece, but actually I don't know many of our legacy pledges very well. Your community guy, he's pledged legacy. Could you get us some quotes? And I'm like, hey, I'll get you an interview, I'll get you photos, I'll get you a video. What do you want? I know
Whatever you want.
You'll want to do absolutely anything. It was a really successful legacy campaign because I knew that person, knew why he was passionate about the charity and could get all of that information for them to share.
It makes it makes the volunteer feel special as well, though, doesn't it? Or the supporter, because if they're ready to share their story, then they really want to share their story and show how it's helping and how they've been helped. And I think that's a really powerful thing as well, and that really does come across when they tell that story in an individual giving campaign or whatever it may be.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I found as well working with individual giving was actually community could offer really valuable audience insights. So, anyone who works in individual giving will be talking about, what other audiences can we reach out to? What do we know about our donors currently? And individual giving teams are phenomenal about analysing their donors and analysing the data. Like the stuff I learned, from really in-depth individual giving fundraising is amazing. But they don't necessarily, they know the qualitative stuff, I've got that wrong way around. They know the quantitative stuff, not necessarily the qualitative stuff. And actually, when I set up a volunteer network for speakers and ambassadors, we found two whole new audiences. We had one audience that we knew was our core audience, it was the people who responded to our DM appeals. We found two whole other audiences of people that wanted to come and give talks that were actually potential donors as well. So this is an international development charity. So we knew that retired farmers were a big supporter base for us. So that was where we started looking for our volunteers. But then organically, we got international development students and African diaspora who were traditionally middle-aged women. So three completely different audiences, two of which we had never even considered tapping into on an individual giving basis. And that last group, the African diaspora group, were the most phenomenal fundraisers and donors and volunteers you've ever met in your life, because they were your, slightly traditional community fundraisers, really tapped into their communities, tapped into their faith groups or their kids' schools or whatever it might be, and had a lot of free time to volunteer and fundraise, but also had a little bit of disposable income that they wanted to be donors as well. And this was brilliant. This opened up, a whole new world of places we could reach out to and find new donors. And we never would have found that if we hadn't set up that volunteer network.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. It's just goes to show how well connected community fundraising can be, and how it can really benefit every part of the organisation if organisations just let it. And as I said, I think a lot more organisations are realising the benefit of community fundraising and what we can bring to the table. We're not, as you were saying earlier, Sarah, not just the little money people. We're just, we might be the little money people. If we collect 50 quid at a coffee morning, that's great. But we can also bring so much more than that.
Yeah. But actually, that 50 quid for that family at that coffee morning might have been exactly the same as £5,000 or £50,000 for someone else. It's not about the value as in the money on the bank balance spreadsheet. It's the value that supporter could bring, and that gift might have actually been really big for them.
Yeah, exactly. And often I find that, with a small gift also then sometimes comes, the want to do more, whether that be volunteering, so giving their time rather than money, or, going on and saying, well, actually, I've raised this much, I want to go bigger. People gain confidence. And I think that's another thing that I love about being in community fundraising and being in that role, is that you can really inspire people to raise more. And it's not by anything that you're doing, it's by the fact that you're giving them that support to raise that 50 quid, whatever it may be that they're doing, and then they've had such a good journey and they feel so confident that they would be able to replicate that and do something again. They then step up and want to go bigger, which is just, which then leads into, a whole other thing, and that is amazing. And it's amazing to see a fundraiser's confidence grow, just from starting doing something maybe little in their local community to then maybe putting on a massive event or something like that. That's another really amazing part of being involved in community fundraising. So you guys so working in community fundraising, I find that I've been to a lot of really interesting events but also have a lot of fun. So what has been your either most or both interesting and fun event that's community based that you guys have been to or been involved with?
Emily?
An interesting one for me was that we had a big group of anglers, so fishermen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what anglers were when I first
It's
started
amazing
working
what
with
you
them.
learn in community fundraising. What you
Oh my God, yeah, definitely.
I never thought you would.
Yeah, so they were having this big fishing weekend, and we went up and joined them, and it was just, I guess it's just another world for me. I hadn't realised that fishing was such a massive industry, and we were marched around the whole lake and had to pose with all these fishermen and their fish, and it was a very bizarre weekend. But they raised a hell of a lot of money. I think they raised about £25,000 to £30,000 in the end. So
Oh, wow.
they were huge fundraisers for us year on year, but it was bizarre.
Yeah, I learned a huge amount about farming and agriculture when I worked at the International Development Charity, and it's amazing. I never thought I would. I'm such a London girl. Like, I never thought I'd learn as much as I did about crop rotation and just so much stuff. But the joy of it was I got to go to a barn dance and a ceilidh, which are, well, I was going to say they're the same thing. I'm sure there'll be people.
Scottish dancing is a ceilidh.
It's the same kind of thing. You're in rows and you get told what to do. All right,
Similar. I'll go with similar.
In East London, you don't get a lot of ceilidhs or barn dances. And I got to go to both of them in a year, and it was the barn dance in an actual barn on a farm. And this is something he did I think it was every year, every other year. And yes, same, raised a solid 15 grand every single year doing this amazing event. And the ceilidh was at a private boys' school, and that was the best thing I've ever seen in my life as well. They were throwing it around. Oh, it was great fun. And again, that school partnership raised something like 60 grand over the course of the year. So community, we're not small money necessarily. We're bringing in some big, amazing partnerships.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you, Millie? What's the best event you've been to?
Oh, I've been to a fair few that have been brilliant. The one that really sticks out in my mind, I was working at a charity, and there was this group of guys that didn't know that it was a fundraising group, but didn't know them. They'd just seen their story in the local newspaper, which is just community fundraising down to a T. And so these three guys got in touch with this family who were a fundraising group, and they decided that these three guys were going to do an Ironman, right? But it wasn't like an organised Ironman. It was an Ironman that they were doing in their local town, and it was they did it all themselves. It's so DIY, and I'm going, oh my god, risk assessment, everything, and it was just. But then actually, so they were doing the swim in their local swimming pool, and a couple of the guys didn't actually really properly know how to swim, so they got swimming lessons to make sure that they could swim the distance. They then had to do all the cycling and the running, and it was just mental. And one of the guys' girlfriends, she organised a massive fun day to happen at the same time that the guys were going to be running through when they started their running leg. But that was the most incredible event. I remember getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, driving to where the swim was taking place, and meeting the guys as they were just finishing off their final laps. And then I spent the day with sort of family and friends, and I spent the morning at the side of the road that they were cycling up and down, because basically their cycle route was literally up one part of a dual carriageway, go round the roundabout, back down, go round the roundabout, back up. Which was genius in a way, because you must have started to learn the route. But it was just, so we were at the pub at the side of this road, and every time they went past, which was maybe like every, I don't know, half hour, we were just getting up and cheering and then sitting back down again. And then it was like the fun day, and then the run. We were all congregating at a pub, sort of locally, and all their friends and family had come out and to support them, and it was just incredible. And they didn't finish until it must have been maybe 10:30 at night. And so I'd been there since, like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but they'd been there swimming earlier than that, and then they didn't finish. And they literally, I mean, they were basically helping each other over the finish line. They were like broken men, but in the same way that they were also so obviously overwhelmed by, first of all, that that they'd done it, and second of all by the support that they'd had from the local community, because it was just incredible. And it was just a really, really special event, and I'll always remember, just how amazing and emotional it was that these three guys that didn't know this family got to know the family, and basically have now become like family friends, and are so supportive. And it's just, that is the power of community and the power of community fundraising, and it's amazing.
Amazing. I love it. I think that's probably a beautifully inspiring note to end on. I think you're right. That is the power of community. You're spot on, really. Yeah. Amazing. Brilliant. Well, hopefully people have enjoyed listening to our madcap community fundraising stories, and people hopefully know that, community fundraising has a huge amount to offer to any fundraising team. And if you're not community fundraising and listening, go and show your community fundraisers a bit of love. Go and offer to shake a bucket at their next election. They'll really appreciate it. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
You've been listening to Simon Scriver's Amazingly Ultimate Fundraising Superstar podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and head over to changefundraising.com to learn more or get in touch with Simon. Or don't. Whatever. You're big enough to make your own decisions.
Hello, this is Morgan Freeman. For discounts on Simon's best-selling online fundraising courses, go to www.changefundraising.com/training and use coupon code podcast. Complete them in your own time, wherever you want. Get busy living or get busy buying.